want to make sure that the customer base stays the same. I don't want to change anything. I want to come in and keep all that. I mean, was that a philosophy that you had right away?
The size of the bacon that we order at trips and get delivered to us, we're the state's largest purchaser of that size of bacon. It's a market differentiator, right? Like everyone can make sandwiches, right? You throw some stuff, but no one has our bread. I don't know that the business would have survived if that little thing.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to Talkin St. Pete and Happy New Year. It's been a while, but we're back and sending our best wishes out to everyone that was affected by the storms. Our hearts go out to you and we're here for you in any way. So if you need any resources regarding that, please find our contact information in the description below. As this podcast is sponsored by Bogdan Homes at Keller Williams St. Pete. So if you know anyone looking to buy, sell, invest, or you just need some resources, again, our contact information is in the description below. And now on to our amazing guest. He's made an impact on Central and many other areas throughout St. Pete. I have Phillip Ingram, the CEO of Sunshine City Foods, which is the parent company to the famous Lonni's and Trips Diner. Phillip, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you having me today. I look forward to our talk and talking some food, talking St. Pete.
Talking some all the good things.
Wherever we go.
Yeah, talking whatever we want to. Let's start first. One, you have Lonni's and Trips Diner, which congrats on that, because I know Trips is an addition to the portfolio here. When did you acquire Trips?
Okay, so Trips, we actually just hit 2 years, January 1st.
And you've had Lonni's for how long?
Lonni's was crazy and bought it in the middle of COVID.
Okay.
It's just like a hope and a prayer, and it's really worked itself out. So we bought that in 2020, January 2020.
So we're at 5 years.
5 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a really awesome experience.
That's and man, what a testament of like true entrepreneurship, diving in a time like January 2020. You had no idea what the world was going to look like 90 days later.
I'll be honest, the first 3 to 6 months, I was pretty nervous. There certainly wasn't a ton of business happening yet, but the exciting thing was, and one of the reasons that I pulled the trigger was, one, Florida started opening back up a little bit sooner than others, and also specifically St. Pete's so friendly to small business and really embraces their small business. You could see the movement of like, we want our small businesses to survive in this city. So, sales got a little bit better every month coming out. Yep. So it's like, it kept me going. Yeah.
So I want to talk all things on both the restaurants, but before that, I think it's important for us to understand a little bit of how you got here to be in a position to acquire Lonni's, right, 5 years ago. It sounds like you had some restaurant experience from our previous conversation. Could you just run us through that a little bit of what led up to you building the confidence and the means to be able to come in and purchase Lonni's?
Okay. In a roundabout way, I've done a little bit of everything in the restaurant world. I've worked for large companies. I worked for small companies, mom and pops, regionals. Started out as a dishwasher in Red Lobster. And I worked through pretty much every position in that company. I worked with them for about 8 years.
Wow. Started from the ground up.
Yeah. So that was, I started with them in high school and worked with them all through I was in college. Ended up falling in love with the restaurant industry, and I just never left. So I worked with a couple of regionals and all across the state of Florida. Worked in pretty much every major metro market, opened a lot of restaurants, done a lot of new openings, did a lot of worked at a lot of struggling locations to help improve operations. And every now and then I would get sent to Tampa Bay. St. Pete and Tampa, depending on which job it was, is my favorite spot every time I travel to Florida. Anything from the Panhandle down to South Florida, I always knew I wanted to end up back here.
It's a great place.
So made it happen eventually.
Okay, so you gain a lot of experience through being at Red Lobster and being a larger corporation. I'm sure there was a lot of standards and procedures that you got to witness and watch. But I find it unique, and I like this conversation because I don't know that I've sat down, at least not to my memory, to where saying that with someone who's come in and acquired in a business rather than starting fresh. So, I mean, we know that the success rate of most new restaurants is not high. And so was there a conscious decision to buy Lonnie's, or did the opportunity present itself versus you starting something yourself?
So it's funny you asked that. So I actually had been working on developing a couple of my own concepts myself. And to your point, they are very unknown. You don't know what your customer base is going to look like. You don't know you have no sales data, and you don't know if the community is necessarily going to embrace what you think is amazing in your head.
Mm-hmm.
The community might tell you otherwise. One of the concepts that I was developing was actually a gourmet sandwich shop. So I worked at a sandwich barbecue place in Orlando years ago, and I loved it. It was like one of my favorite businesses that I've ever worked in. And so I'd been developing this like gourmet sandwich shop. Had like a dog aspect to it. This was like right before COVID. I actually looked at a couple places, build outs in Fort Lauderdale before moving up here. And thank God they did not work out, because they would have started like right before COVID went into play, and I would have been upside down.
Yeah.
So my mindset kind of shifted once COVID happened, right? It's already scary enough to acquire a business during all that. A little less scary if I know and have some data with a known quantity of a business. And I was kind of thinking gourmet sandwich shop in my head, and lo and behold, found out there's this gourmet sandwich shop that's for sale. And again, things kind of just line up at the right time, sometimes for the right reasons.
Yeah. And so you successfully acquired Lonnie's, but our conversation previously I was amazed by is that you were saying, hey, I want to make sure you're very strategic in saying, I want to make sure that the customer base stays the same. I don't want to change anything. I want to come in and keep all that. I mean, was that a philosophy that you had right away? Did you adapt that now over the 5 years of being in this? Was that a new thing when you brought trips into the portfolio?
I think because that I had worked for a couple of large corporations before, I was very familiar with when these large corporations change. Some of the companies I worked for were 20, 30, 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Each business had a core customer base. And if you change something such as the food quality or supplier, or even the paintings on the wall, guests can sometimes have a negative reaction to that.
Right.
Yeah, like you'd be surprised some of the things that you're changing everything
right.
about.
It's their favorite spot. It's the vibe of how they come in, the music that's playing, everything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that I had seen guest perception in past businesses, and just knowledge acquired that, I am going to change some things, but it's to preserve this brand. And I kind of have a number in my head. If I think I need to change more than 10 or 15% of the business, I'm not interested, because I do want the core of it to stay the same. I'm not on a mission to acquire local brands and change them and like make them have a corporate feel or anything along those lines. I just want to run them hopefully a little bit more efficiently. And I look for legacy brands, right?
Yeah, you had mentioned that.
So
what makes a legacy brand?
Okay, so I look for brands that are at least 10 years old. They have a proven track record. Ratings, very important. That, the community obviously has embraced these brands. They love them. It's their spot, right? Last thing I want to do is ruin your spot. I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
So I look for that, I want to keep it local. The worst thing that I can hear, and every now and then I hear it because people automatically assume, Lonnie's became corporate, or I'm sure we'll talk about trips a little bit. Trips sold to corporate. My office is in St. Pete in my like one of my extra bedrooms. Like, I am not corporatized.
You're right.
I assure you. So, and that's what I want it to stay. I want that legacy brand. You know, Lonnie's is almost 40 years old. We're a couple years away from it turning 40.
Wow.
You know, I want that legacy to continue to be 40, 50, 60 years old. And people be like, oh my God, like my grandma, my great grandma, my grandpa
Went to
used
this
to
shop.
come here.
Yeah.
Like,
So what's important, you know, because maybe there's some restaurant owners listening that are new or thinking about starting a restaurant. To you, what are the key metrics? I mean, we're in an amazing city that really supports small business, but we've seen places open and close. And so what do you think makes Lonnie special that's allowed it to last 40 years? Because yeah, we talked about COVID. That's just one trial and tribulation that it's faced over its 40 years.
I think the quality of the product is first and foremost. You know, we have a very specific bread that we use.
Which is delicious, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think quality of the product, and it's a market differentiator, right? Like everyone can make sandwiches, right? You throw some stuff, but no one has our bread. You know, and the other part of that is the people. You know, you have to have a good team. You have to have them buy into the care of the guest and make sure that they take care of the people walking in the door. And something that's specific in our business, especially Lonnie's, is we have so many core customers because we are business-based lunch. A lot of repeat customers are in there 2, 3, 4 times a week. A lot of them names we know. We can tell you what the order is before you go in. And I've even seen it to the point where our team is like, hey, how are you doing today? Let's say Gary. Got your food ready. Here's your bag.
Yeah.
Like,
Just know the time.
They just know.
But that is a local feel.
It's a very unique situation. But I think the people and the product is really what's helped us last through the test of time. Also, I'm a big believer in value. You know, we're in downtown. I probably could push prices a little bit more. I choose not to.
Thank you.
There's not a whole lot of like really, like, especially if you think about it, you know, if someone's going to my business more than twice a week, you know, that adds up every week. And if you look at the end of the month, like that's a pretty big bill, right? You know, which I appreciate, certainly. But I want them to come 2, 3 times a week, you know? There's not a whole lot of options of really like value-driven food downtown for business lunch.
You're right.
That I've seen.
You're right.
There are a lot of great options. There are a lot of great sit-down options, right?
But the grab and go.
But the grab and go is kind of rare. There's not a quick services like the sector that we're in, and there's not a whole lot of quick service. We do have some coming online. I've got some competitors coming in. There's another sandwich shop that's going to come in, the new food court, I think Palm Avenue. And then Sweet Green just came online.
I want to talk about, I'm so glad you brought that up.
So, yeah, we'll have thoughts and talks.
Well, look, and I'm not afraid to voice my opinion. Franchises don't belong on Central.
I'm not going to say that they don't belong.
I'll say it.
But I will say that I have my own thoughts. I think that it dramatically, if Central, you went up and down, was all franchises, I think the feel of the street and the city would become dramatically different.
This is why I'm going to put the stake in the ground and say they don't belong, because you let one, you let two, you let three. Now, luckily, we just had it's Allison. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your last name at the moment, but we just had Allison on from the city innovation district at this launch that we did over the weekend, and she said that one of the questions I asked her was, how is the city keeping larger franchises coming in from moving in? And it's their permitting and not based off of square footage, so they're not allowing large footprints, which a lot of these larger franchisees want for their places, which is great. So I like to hear that St. Pete is doing what they can to measure. But at the end of the day, my concern, especially with 400 Central going up, is that these rent prices are going to get and not allow the local business owner to start that new business after one place. You know, the turnover there. Like, it's always neat when there's a new concept coming in because it's quote unquote affordable to do so for a new business owner. Whereas when it's not, now that landlord's going to have no option but to rent to someone who can pay the price.
Correct. I mean, the difference between small business and the franchises that come in, and this isn't true for all, because there are some out there, and I don't want to knock on them because I know a lot of great people that do this.
Yeah.
But, you know, my profitability for my store goes to my home, my family, all that here, and
Stays local.
It stays local. And in general, you need a little bit more of a margin than a franchise does to stay operational. So to your point, that rent, that might affect a small business owner in St. Pete a lot more than it does like a national corporation, because as long as they're still turning a little bit of a profit, they're okay.
Yep.
You know, if someone's relying on it to like pay all their bills, it's a completely different story. But yeah, as far as like what I love of the character of the city is, not naming names, but I've seen a few franchises come in specifically with food up and down Central, and I don't see them anymore.
Thank goodness.
And I think that a lot of that is based on the citizens of St. Pete and the choices they make, and I certainly appreciate those choices.
Me too. Keep supporting local business. And I've learned anything is that you got to take a stance on something. And if I'm going to be controversial about something, it's that I want more local businesses to stay on St. Pete. And if you don't like that, then don't watch my show.
We'll appreciate it.
Yeah, because to that whole thing that I just said, and a conversation we were having before, and now I'm the one tapping on the table. Is that you don't get excited to go back to, there's a lot of transplants in St. Pete. I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area, and I'm not getting excited to go back to go to Chili's or these other, franchises that we know that are on main suburban strips of the highway. So not knocking the franchise owner of Sweet Green, not knocking the person who's putting Melting Pot on Central, but I can go to any major city and eat those. I could care less.
Correct.
I can't go to every major city and eat at a Lonnie's.
Yeah, no, it's funny because we just came out of the holidays, right? So I think of this every holiday season, especially if I go back to my hometown. The first thing I want to do is go to my favorite restaurant in my hometown that I haven't been to in forever. And it's not, to your point, it's not Melting Pot. It's not Chili's. It's not Carrabba's. It's not
Olive Garden.
Any of those things, right?
Yep.
Not to knock them.
No. They have a place.
They have a place and they do great
Just
things.
now on Central Avenue in
But
St. Pete.
it's not what makes your town or city special. It doesn't differentiate it. So like St. Pete specifically, I think we have one of the best downtowns, not just in Florida, but in all of America. From the walkability to the great options that you can't find anywhere else to the park system, So, I mean, it literally checks all the boxes when you come downtown.
Phillip, you're just like, I'm getting so excited. One, I want to apologize to everyone because we have been off the air for a little bit. There's been a lot of things that have happened, and this conversation gets me so invigorated. Then I'm so we have a great lineup already for the year, but just gets me so excited to continue to have these types of conversations because you're right. Like, we're in the greatest city in the United States. I truly believe that. Well, we can keep going down that rabbit hole for a second, but let's cap it there for a second. Has Lonnie's always been in the same location?
It hasn't.
Okay, so tell us the backstory a little bit.
Yeah, great. So Lonnie's actually at one point had 6 locations.
Whoa.
Yeah,
okay.
So Lonni, who was the original owner, she built it out kind of a regional. And today there's 2 locations. So I'm not. Same brand, but different owners. There's one in Dunedin and there's one in downtown St. Pete.
Yep.
The downtown St. Pete specifically used to be over by where the Duke Energy building is now. And then actually we're located at 429 Central right now. Prior, I'd say 7-8 years ago, we were actually at 425 Central. And this is going to be really funny because we've been talking about this. 425 Central for like 10 years, 12 years. Prior to 7 years ago. Lease renewal time came and the landlord wanted to put in a franchise. And the franchisee and the parent company wanted a bigger footprint, to your point. So it's really funny you're bringing all this up.
Oh, I'm passionate. I'm passionate.
So they said, hey, how do you feel about moving into the smaller footprint next door? And we'll help pay for the build out, which was a pretty good offer. And because this national chain wants to come in, and they'll only do it in this size. So we ended up switching over from 425 to 429. The national chain that came in, went really quick.
Love that.
And it actually saved us. You talked about how do we survive different things. It was actually a blessing in disguise moving into the smaller footprint next door, especially during COVID, because it dramatically reduced our overhead. And I'll be honest, I don't know that the business would have survived if that little thing.
How crazy is that?
I mean, we reduced our overhead in the business a little over 30,000, 40,000 for the year, which, during that time,
those stories are so cool.
Pennies matter.
Oh, for sure. Because you're and at that time, I'm sure the only thing you care about is paying your people and keeping the lights on.
That's right.
You just want to pay your people.
Survive.
Survive.
It was survival.
It was just survive.
For
the lifeboats are out. Everything's in.
For everyone in hospitality, it was survival.
You're shooting flares, everything you can, right?
Yeah.
And so you're right. Like in a $40,000, that's huge.
Yeah.
Wow, what a unique series of events. Right? So you can almost thank that larger franchise for doing that, but at the same time, and look, I don't want anyone to think that I'm like knocking, because look, I'm a business person, like I'm all about business, but I unique character comes with what we have, and I'm just very, very I feel like because of this platform we have a voice. I'm gonna do everything I can to save it for as long as we can.
Well, we certainly, I think I can speak on the behalf of the small business community. We appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's why it's so fun, Phillip, to sit here and learn your story, because it gets people bought. Like we don't. What's the backstory to any major franchise on a person-to-person level? At some point, it loses its character,
right?
And not at a fault of its own. It's just that's what happens at scale.
Yeah, like I said, it's again, to me, it's what makes it special, right? I mean, we just have so many great businesses in this city, and I'm not saying that I don't ever go to like a national business. I mean, we all do. We go to Publix, and it's a great business.
Oh,
right?
yeah. You know what? Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not knocking. It's just that we just have to be careful.
I would tell you specifically downtown. I would wish that downtown would stay all small business. That's because I think it adds long term to the vibe. I mean, look at how many people are wanting to move to St. Pete.
How excited are you for 300 plus residences to be being built right across from where you are?
I mean, it's wild.
It's
absolutely wild. So,
I mean, that's not something that you knew that was going to happen when you bought the place.
So I did.
Did you?
I did kind of have an inkling.
Okay, this is cool to know.
So I knew that there was something coming. I didn't know the exact capacity, but I knew it was going to be big, and I knew about Art House that was coming down a couple blocks away. So you've got almost 100 stories of residential within a 2-block radius.
Yeah, probably 500 plus units.
And there's actually supposed to be another one that fell through, and I don't know the name of it, but it's on First, like right where the Sunrunner station is. That was supposed to happen.
Recently, it just fell
out? It was supposed to start construction a year and a half ago.
Okay, I don't know. No, because I know the Waldorf Astoria was just announced.
Yeah, that's coming too.
Yes.
So that's 49 stories.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, it's going to be a monster.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's wild. So it's.
I mean, you guys have with all the workers just there. I'm sure your business is big.
So it's funny because and this is I think another tribute, because we have we do have a lot of workers that come in, and a lot of them come in 5 days a week.
I bet, because to your point, where else they don't have time to go sit down and have lunch,
correct.
Right? They're on a tight timeline.
And again, I think the benefit of having value, we're approachable across like every spectrum, right? So, but yeah, so it's so funny because I think that's the battle that downtown St. Pete's going to have, and you probably have seen this. There's so much. Everyone's like, oh, so much expansion. It's growing too big, and yeah, like part of me worries about it. Like, of course, as a business person, like I'm like, oh my God, this is great. But yeah, does it change the character and how St. Pete operates? Like, I do have some concerns about that.
Well, some would say it already has, right? The people, the OGs that have been here and grew up their whole life would say that, downtown was a place that you didn't come. It was all boarded up. There was maybe one bar or whatever. And so it's already shifted and has changed. And my line on that, and this is where I will kind of go back on some of my other words, is that if you're going to change, let's at least change for the better. And I go like, we're having the opposite problem. Businesses are open, buildings are being built. It's not businesses are shutting down and getting boarded up.
Correct.
So change is inevitable. Nothing is stagnant. So if we're going to change, let's change for the better. And for some that means that things get a little more expensive, that things are going to change, more people, more crowds, more traffic. But how you can't maintain this utopia that doesn't move.
Correct. Well, I mean, Pinellas County is the densest county in Florida. Like there's only one way to go, and it's up.
It's up.
It's up.
Yeah.
So so it's coming. To your point earlier, I do have concerns about like the rent, like being priced out for some small businesses. So like that's my main concern. But am I excited about the growth of St. Pete? Like absolutely. Like I'm shocked that the city wasn't growth explosion 20 years ago, because it's so beautiful, right?
Yeah, no, it is.
And I think that because of the way that they've held the real estate with the waterfront parks downtown,
so important.
It's such, for me, that's the decider between Tampa and St. Pete.
It's
right, like being able just to go to the park, like on the waterfront, with like nothing obstructing your view, or like having all that green space, park space. That is such a play for St. Pete.
I can't remember the exact. I think it's like 30 some miles of waterfront. I can't remember. It's one of our reels that like really blew up. People loved it. I think Wendy, the nutritionist, shared the fact on that. But that is, Pinellas County has the most access to waterfront. That's not built on public waterfront.
Yes.
Which is a huge like the Vinoy and Snell and all those characters back in the day locking up those deals to make sure that they couldn't build, at Vinoy Park, and having the Albert Whitten Airport right there and having that unobstructed view, just incredible.
It's beautiful.
It's really, really, really beautiful. So is there any, Lonnie's, you have great bread, great sandwiches, accessible, handhelds out the door. What else do we know about Lonnie's?
You should know that we're great for businesses, great for business lunch, great for catering. We do a lot of catering. It's probably 15-20% of our business.
Wow.
And if you're looking for something to grab and go, you can do it. I'd say probably a third of our customer base at this point prepays online.
Wow.
They literally walk in, say, hey, my name's Ryan. I'm here to pick up my food. We hand it right to them, and they're in and out the door in less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
I don't know how many places you can go to downtown and have that happen.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's really like just our biggest. We're efficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good quality, affordable price, and we love, especially our regulars. I mean, I have so many stories that I could tell you. That I have like multiple generations of families that come in together. And it's like, we have like a couple twins that come in, and their mom brought them in when they were like little girls, and now they're full grown.
Right. It's cool.
I mean, it's just a very cool story.
Love that. So now transitioning over to Trips Diner, totally different environment in terms of sit down, not grab and go style, bigger footprint. Maybe taking you back more to your Red Lobster days a little bit. So what was the thought process in acquiring that? Because Trips has been around for a long time, different model, great brand, different location. Just fill us in. What's happening at Trips?
Okay, so Trips was a whirlwind, and I'll tell you a funny story in a second. But so I started looking a couple years after Lonnie's, and I was looking for just another single restaurant. And so Trips is a multi-unit, so we have one in St. Pete and one in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
I had no interest in looking for a multi-unit. And I had asked a couple people around after like started getting really serious, like, I'm ready, So I started asking a couple different brokers, hey, like, do you know anything out there? Gave them the specifics. I'm looking for something local, been around for a while, good rapport with the community. And one got back to me and said, hey, like, I don't know if like you're really going to be interested. This might be too big for you. And it's a multi-unit. And I was like, I don't know. Probably not. But, go ahead and entertain me. Man, as soon as he told me Trips, I was like, I wasn't planning on a multi-unit. I was like, but this is such an awesome brand. I loved going to Trips. I was like, Diner wasn't even on my radar.
Mhm.
But I love the brand, and I was like, this is such a core of what I want, like, my legacy to be, is like preserving these great brands and like having it passed to the hands of someone that really wants to take care of it and have it go into the future. And I think I might have told you earlier, like I look for a lot of signs before I make decisions on businesses. And a quick funny story is before I bought Lonnie's, I was looking for a lawyer to kind of help transact some of these deals. And his office actually ended up being like right behind Lonnie's. It was like a block behind, right? And he's like, "Oh my God, like I can go, like I go there all the time." And I was like, "All right, well, you're the lawyer for me for this deal,
Right. Yeah, this is lined up.
So gave him a call once we started getting serious about trips. And he's like, he just started laughing. And because I didn't tell him, I was like, "Hey, I'm looking at something." He's like, "Oh, what are you getting yourself into now?" And I was like, I'm looking at trips. He's like, he started laughing. "Well, tell you what, I haven't talked to you for a little bit, but I actually moved offices, and I'm actually like half a mile down from trips on the same road now. And I had lunch there today, and it was awesome." And I think that was the moment I knew.
You're like, yeah, okay.
I was like, I asked for a sign and I got spoken to.
So you gotta watch when that attorney moves to the next office. So what
That's what I told him.
what restaurant are you near? Because that's the one we're
Correct.
going for.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Make
good.
sure your next office is next to a good local brand.
Yes. And so, just the way you lit up, and I saw it in your eyes there when you mentioned trips because of the brand, and that's so important. So what makes a good brand? Why is Trips a good brand?
I think the same as I told you before. I think product and people.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have great people. A lot been there long time, good tenure there. The product is good. We're not earth shattering food. It's bacon and eggs, right?
But it's diner food, which it can be.
But I will tell you, our bacon is a lot larger than a lot of other diners or breakfast places.
Hey, we all like that bacon.
And a lot of people skimped down after COVID, and we didn't. And the size of the bacon, this is like a weird fun fact, but the size of the bacon that we order at Trips and get delivered to us, we're the state's largest purchaser of that size of bacon because everyone went to a smaller model post-COVID.
Skimping on the wrong thing. You don't know America well enough if you're skimping on bacon.
Correct. So, and then, we've won a number of awards the past few years of best value in Tampa Bay. And I think that's the other part of it is we're so approachable. In our price points, unfortunately, I have had to raise prices in the past few years, but at a very minuscule amount, way less than how much our costs have gone up.
Right.
And honestly, my science to that is I look at 5-6 competitors. I post all of their menus on my wall. I study all of them, and I make sure that I'm cheaper than all of them.
Wow, you're a hero to the community. You're a hero.
So,
no, seriously, because you're holding the market, right? Because your competitors also know that they can't go much higher than what you're holding the line at, right? So that's admirable, especially, if we got into the conversation of greater supply chain to what's happening to cost of everything. Gas prices affect the cost of all of this and so many other things. And, if your costs went up 11% and you only went up 7%, you're eating.
There's a gap.
Yeah, you're eating that other percentage, whatever it is. And so, but it's admirable and says that your heart's in the right place to maintain the brand and quality. So that definitely is appreciated. I appreciate you sharing that. Also a fun thing, because being from up north, and maybe it's because of the trucking traffic or whatever, but there are 24/7 diners everywhere. There's limited diners down here. And Trips is like with the high, like when you think of a diner, you think of Trips. The only other one that comes to mind is a chain. And that one is open 24/7. I wouldn't go there late. Why do you think that is? And is it just because of the landscape to that fact that there's not a customer base for a 24/7 diner? Is this something that you've noticed?
Okay. So it's funny you mentioned that. So my wife is from New Jersey, the diner capital of America.
Yes.
And she always tells me stories about how her and her family, like they grew up always going to diners. And to the point of earlier, like a diner was not on my radar. I was like, I don't think I'll ever like. We just had a weird conversation one day, and it was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna have a diner. And then lo and behold, trips
Here you
happened.
are.
You know, so it just kind of worked out that way, which is funny. But I don't know. Like I think that part of it here is like restaurants are hard in Florida, and it's getting a little bit harder, especially with the cost of the big difference is like insurance and rents. Those are really like the two big drivers, and honestly, litigation's another big part of it. So hoping for tort reform. But I couldn't put like an exact finger on that. I think that people tend to gear towards like the highest margin that they can. So like you see a lot of like the two most that you see is Italian. You see tons of Italian. Why? Because pasta's cheap, right? Pizza's another great one. Same kind of like feel, but or your noodle places, right? Like great food cost, and like you probably have a little bit better of a margin. Breakfast specifically, it's a hard game. It's very quick. It's very turn and burn as far as like what you need to do to get that food out. And I think another part of it is breakfast is not sexy, right? Like diners are not sexy.
True.
I love the brand because I just like talking to people and have a good time and like, hey, let's share a cup of coffee together.
Yeah.
And like that can be like my favorite part of the day. But I think like if you have like entrepreneurs that maybe are going out there and like they're looking to acquire something, if you don't have a background in food, I would be more excited probably about a steakhouse or, something like with a full liquor setup because it has a higher profit margin. But for me, who just loves like the hospitality industry and like the people part of the hospitality industry, the diner's like the best place, right? It's like what you see, like if you ever watch news segments, where do they always go to talk to people? It's diners, right? Like it's always like I'm doing a diner tour across whatever, right? And so I think the people aspect for me is fun. I think that a lot of people who necessarily aren't familiar with the food industry and they jump into it as a business owner, it might not speak to them. The 24/7 game is really hard. I'll tell you for me, especially with diner, because diner's 3 meals, right? I have a few rules about restaurant ownership. I spend a lot of time every week working on my businesses, a lot of days. I've always had, and this is true even before I owned anything, I always had rules. I'm not going to work in a restaurant that's open past 11. I'm not going to work on Christmas, and I'm not going to work on Thanksgiving. The restaurant gets a lot of my time throughout the year.
Right, but those are your rules.
I don't want calls at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I want to spend Christmas and Thanksgiving with my family.
Yeah. That's fair. No, it was just a unique observation, coming from the Northeast of, like you said, diners on every corner. And I just think it is a different landscape in terms of the clientele that are there. We don't have massive amounts of truckers coming through in the middle of the night that need to stop and have a meal or something like that. But to your point, I love that you have rules. I think standards in place are super, super important, which was having, as you're saying all this, was thinking as an operator, an owner, and now with two different, yes, you're in the hospitality food business, but two different landscapes. Where does now you have something else to focus on? Focus is a real thing. So how do you divide your time? And this is me coming from like another, like owner, operator, entrepreneur. Like what's your main 20% that you focus on?
People in place and doing the right things is like, honestly, if that doesn't happen, it doesn't matter what you do. Leadership is key. So it's really like spending time with leaders, trying to develop them, get them to have the buy-in and see like what you're seeing. That's the gist of it, because as much as I like to think that I can be in all places at all times, like let's be real, it's not happening. And if I don't have people making the right decisions like day to day, like
Yeah, you can't be at Lonnie's and trips at the same time or in the
correct.
next, right? You have to put great people in place. Leadership is something, I've been talking a lot about. I mean, being in leadership, always developing it, reading the great minds of the great leaders and, John Maxwell and others. Yeah, no, that I can see. But one of my favorite lines that we have as a core value here is success through people. I think that's just
Great.
so important. So what, you mentioned liquor as a higher profit margin. Do you see yourself ever owning a restaurant that closes at 11 that has a liquor license?
Sure. I would never say never. I don't know what's next, and that's kind of the scary and exciting thing about it all at the same time.
It's wherever your attorney moves to. That's what
yeah. So no, I absolutely would consider it. It's that's not a line for me either way.
I didn't know if that was a
I'd
rule
say-
where you're like, no liquor.
No, the 11 o'clock rule is because I think nothing good in a restaurant happens after a certain time.
Yeah, I mean,
And, but yeah, if people want to come in and get drinks, and that opportunity and the right, I look at somewhere, and I think they have a liquor license, but like a business like Harvey's, 4th Street Grill. I'm pretty sure they have a full bar. Like that would be like a great situation, right? So, if they're selling, hit me up. But great neighbor. I feel like that's what Applebee's used to want to be, right? Like the great neighborhood bar and grill.
Yeah,
Like,
they lost their way.
I love their story. I love that business. It's one of my favorite places that I wish I owned, because they have such a cool story. I don't know if you know this, but their
share.
floor is actually their floor is the wood planks that used to be in the Vinoy Ballroom when they originally opened.
Okay.
So, and they have like a
That's cool.
They have a lot of cool like St. Pete like memorabilia type stuff. But I actually went on a recent Vinoy like history tour and learned that. And I was like, I love them even more. So, shout out to them.
Yes. Do you think, and this is just explain for you, is there a rule that it's acquiring? Do you ever see a world where you open your own? Let's say 2-3 acquisitions down the road, and now you're like, you know what, we kind of have a footprint here and understand the landscape well enough to where you can see a concept to open something.
It's not on my radar currently, but do I think that it could ever happen? Sure.
Well, because I look at you as a young entrepreneur here in the city, right? And I say young, like just the business road is so long, we can be doing this for another 40 years, right? And in a growing city. So maybe I'm planting seeds because I would like to see that.
I've got a couple concepts that I've thought of for at least 5 or 6 years now. Maybe I'm dating. Maybe 10 that I've thought of that again, I'll never say never. There's always things that could happen and might happen. But I'll be honest, I didn't know that I was going to be doing what I was doing now 5 years ago even.
Me neither. I never thought you having this conversation 5 years ago, right? Yeah.
So it's very possible. I'm just excited to see where the journey kind of goes,
Zooming out a little bit on the landscape of St. Pete, it's obviously we've talked about the greatness of it and attracted. I'm just curious of what let me think how I want to ask that question. Well, it's kind of two-frame. Like, where do you see the city going? We know growth, right? And why do you? No, we already answered all these. We answered a lot of these questions, but I want to get your take more on St. Pete and what you're seeing, because you do have your finger on a pulse with the amount of people that you're in touch with. So, do you have any additional thoughts? Let's start there.
Sure.
On the city.
I think downtown is kind of on the path that it's on. The big question, really the only question for downtown, is what happens with the Rays at this point. And because that's what the largest urban development in all of America. If
80
it
acres.
happens, I mean, it's huge. That could dramatically change the way that downtown changes or doesn't,
right. Yep.
So I think on that side, that's the big question to look out for. And then on the other side, the beach side, again, the beach side is very pro-local. pro small business. I'm a little worried on that side because that's expensive real estate that's going to happen. A lot of small businesses that have been there and they've owned, and I don't know that they're going to be able to like bring back to life like what was there. So I have concerns over that, of what that might look like in 10, 15 years. I think we start seeing a lot more high rises there.
I do agree with that.
And so that vibe's going to change. I'm just hoping that they don't change Paso Grill, because like that's my place.
Yeah.
And I love the small town feel of that beach.
I do think Paso Grill will be one of the last to change if it does.
Yeah.
Just because it never was a touristy spot the way that it's set up, and I think it's the other Treasure Island, Madeira, St. Pete Beach that will be affected too. However, and this is like I'm so back and forth, right? Yes, to local. I want to keep local out there. However, the beach needed a facelift.
We're dated.
Right?
We're dated. And again, if you travel around Florida, like you can see there's a way to do it, right? So before I was in St. Pete, I lived in Fort Lauderdale. And Fort Lauderdale, I thought, had a unique approach to beach development because they have the A1A that goes in between where all the businesses are allowed to go, and then there's the beach, and the beach is uninterrupted. And I thought that was a great situation too.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Virginia Beach, and it actually is the same build out.
You just stayed near the beaches.
Yeah. I moved away from water once, and I told myself never again. So I love like the uninterrupted beach side aspect, so that the condos and stuff aren't directly on it, and then there's no access for everyone else, right? So that's kind of like my hope. But yeah, did we need some updated things? Like, yeah, like Tradewinds is like building a huge expansion right now, which I think could be great for the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that it works for like small guys too, right?
Absolutely. Same.
But to your point earlier, are we always going to be developing and changing? Like, yeah, I mean, that people are scared of change, right? Like even employees, even in brands that have been around for like, inevitably, I'm going to have to upgrade technology or,
right.
Change and paint the wall,
right?
Yeah, something as simple as, but people are scared of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you're changing everything. Like, no, like I'm just trying to like continue to make it last and grow.
Well, hold the standard, right? You can't let things fall apart and diminish. And so if you're not making improvements and you fall apart, right?
Correct.
Yeah. There's so many great things. So how have you, being a new 5-year business owner within St. Pete, talking about the greatness of the small business community, how has the small business community embraced you, and how have you plugged yourself into that?
I mean, it's been awesome. There's so many, characters that we have specifically downtown. It's easy on Central. Like we all, for the most part, know each other. I can give you a couple quick stories about like how awesome they've been. I've had, I think this is a year or two ago, I had my AC went out at Lonnie's, and within, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours of between people coming in and me making calls, I had 2 mobile AC units and 2 industrial fans in from other business owners.
Wow.
That not only did they provide them for me, they brought them to me.
Wow.
So I didn't even have to go pick them. I'll have it to you in like an hour or two.
That's incredible.
So that was one of the coolest moments where I was like, this is awesome. This is like what it's all about, because like we don't have the resources of giant corporations to flip and turn and have all these things, right? So we really do rely on each other. And, it's important to support one another because we're the walkability that's there every day. During season, it's great because we have a lot of people in town. Right now we're busy, but during summer, like who's here? It's us.
Right.
So
it's helping neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah, it really is. And it's so cool because one of my favorite things in business is watching, not only like when I see like one of my employees develop and we're able to promote internally and watch them grow. And even if it's not in my company long term anymore, but to see them successful in what they want to do, like that's the best part of what we do. it's the same too with other business owners. Like people, when I first bought Lonnie's, half of the 400 block was empty. And I mean, it just felt like a dead zone. And people, like, there's new businesses coming in, even food competitors, and people are like, oh no, like, are you worried? And I'm like, no, like, I want this to be the block to come to. Like, I want it to be vibrant. We're in a big enough city where we can support one another. You know what I mean? And so to see like certain, like different business owners grow and succeed, and that's awesome to watch too, because you just want everyone to do well. I mean, we're all out here trying to provide for our families, trying to provide a nice life for each other, So I love it.
It's one thing, a line I've been saying a lot is collaboration happens at the top, competition's at the bottom, right? And so if we just come from a place of collaboration, we all win.
That's right.
It's competition is a lack mindset. In a growing city, we have plenty.
That's right. That's right.
So I like to ask all the guests, and I know this may be hard for you being in the business, and you can't say your own. It's your birthday. We're in St. Pete. Where are we going to eat?
Oh man, I can't give you one.
Maybe we're going to a couple. We're getting the bus. We're hopping around. We're going for appetizers, main course, and dessert. Where are we going?
All right. So first, before I give you an answer, because I might get in trouble for this, because my birthday is actually tomorrow.
Oh, this is amazing. Well, happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if my wife doesn't take me to one of these restaurants, you are not in trouble.
Because this will come out after.
Okay.
Yeah, this will
so
be.
I'm sure she'll pick a great place.
Yes.
Like if I'm doing steaks, Bo and Mo's. Love that place.
Yep.
Downtown, I really like ceviche.
Love ceviche. Was there last night.
Very good.
Yep.
Juno and Peacock is a great new addition.
I agree.
Also, I think I talked about Harvey's. I love Harvey's. And even Three Birds Tavern on 4th Street. Just because I love the vibe of what they did with that facility and just being in a very
You're the first
cool
person
house.
to mention Three Birds, so...
I just love the facility and the build out and kind of like the care. It's just got to, again, like we talk about special places when you go back home somewhere, you can't recreate that building and that restaurant. Like it's just one of its own.
Yep. Oh, that's cool.
So yeah. And then God, I could give you a list, so I'll stop.
No, it's fair. It's fair. It's just a fun question because we always have like a new one pop up or hear the ones that are like super popular, where people like to go. Because, the food scene is a part of our city. It is.
Absolutely. I think it's a huge part of our city. I mean, oh man, there's so many good ones. I want, because I know a lot of these owners.
Right. I know.
I want to shout out all of them.
It's always hard when because you're like, I can't get in trouble. It's not that you're all great, but these are the ones that were top of mind. Yeah, amazing. When, last thing, when you're not, being the CEO of Sunshine City Foods, how do you spend your free time?
The gym's kind of my getaway place, so I like to. That's where I unplug. Like if my phone's on, but I don't look at it while I'm in there. Spending time with my dog, and hanging out with my wife is pretty awesome.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Phillip, it's been amazing. This has been an incredible conversation. I think we could go on for a very, very long time on touching on many subjects. So we'd love to have you back and continue to watch your growth and journey as you help develop St. Pete. We appreciate you and your heart and just keeping it local and looking out for the people. I can genuinely tell it's important to you. So we need more people like you. I think we have a lot, but if we could just duplicate and have more Phillips, the city would continue and we wouldn't even have to worry. So thank you. Appreciate you. For everyone who's still with us watching, what's one word that they could comment below to know who the real fans are?
I don't know.
What's your word? One word. You get to pick.
People.
People. Comment people below. Like, share with a friend. Tell a friend. Go get a sandwich at Lonnie's and have breakfast at Trips. We appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.